the Moores lived out there out at Linden Hall for maybe another whole year. She died October of 1936, and yes, they lived out there another, exactly to the day, another year. Florence and Herbert Moore lived at Linden Hall, and he died in October of the very next year, 1937. It was overwhelming to Florence. The house was way too big. They were actually, the house, the estate was dwindling. The coal and coke was worked out in most areas. A lot of their last producing mines were in West Virginia, and so it wasn't like right here. So they actually sold off farm equipment because it was a self-sustaining estate. They had cattle, they had gardens, so on and so forth, peach groves and so on. So it was self-sustaining, so they started to sell off the equipment. Florence did. They sold her limousine, which was a Packard limousine, and they had a couple electric cars at that time out there as well. They sold the cattle, they sold all kind of equipment, things like that. Then the house was basically there. They had let go probably 4 of the 8 servants. They let them go. So it was dwindling down. And so finally Florence, she wanted to get out of there. She wanted to leave. So actually Florence moved into the parsonage of the church here in a second floor in an apartment. And she moved here until her apartment was ready. She was going to eventually going to California. And so the house was put on the market, and it was put on the market for $50,000. Now that was it was totally furnished, 788 acres. So the first buyer to look at the house was the Order of Ukrainian Byzantine monks. Well, Florence just shuddered because she was not Catholic and she did not want the house going to a Catholic organization. So she said, absolutely not. I will not sell it to you. So there was a gentleman developing an area up in the mountain area here above Connersville. The area was called Bear Rocks. And his name was Joe Breskin. And Joe Breskin came down, looked at Linden Hall, and he gave them $50,000, and she took the $50,000. Then Joe Breskin went into the house, and he actually had buyers come in. They bought furniture, sold furniture out of the house, sold a lot of things, and then he actually, in turn, sold the house to the Ukrainian Byzantine monks. So Florence was not happy, but what are you going to do? So then the monks, they decided they would have their monastery there. It was the Order of St. Basil, the monks' part. The other coal retreat, the J.V. Thompson estate, their rivals, it became the Order of St. Basil, but for the sisters. And it remained that even until today. But this was the Order of St. Basil for the monks. They were hooded monks with very long robes, long beards. And I remember as a child going out there, and they were out there in the 50s, the whole time in the 50s. And I remember going out there, and it was very scary to a little child, with the creepy looking people walking around. And my father was actually a contractor, so he did a lot of work. They did work for the Cochrans, his father, and so on and on through the years. So they'd ask him to come out and do some work. So they were out there until 1953. And then in 53, they decided to put up for sale. It was too much for them to maintain.